No midges today for me. Well, another lovely morning down in my local forest. Yes, so yet another trip out into my favourite local location. I know I come here a lot, but every time I come, I see something different. Well, I've not been here for quite some time. So yes, this is somewhere I was keen on shooting for quite a number of years some while back. And I have not been for a while because, you know, you get a bit tired of the same old locations, but I think it's definitely time I made another effort. You see, I love shooting this tree 2 or 3 years ago with various different formats. I got varying results and I was pretty happy with some of them, but not with others. And after a couple of years, and it sort of played on my mind that maybe I should come back and make another concerted effort to shoot it. I have done with the Bronica, but I am going to question my film choice today rather than just go with the standard 400 speed HP5, Delta 400, XP2, etc. So I've got 2 very different options. So I haven't actually decided on the film yet. I've not preloaded anything before this trip. And as I said a minute ago, I have gone or brought a couple of quite different options to shoot with. But first, I'm going to line up my initial composition. So the all-important film choice. Now, I have got 2 very different films at the extremes of the ISO range. I've got Pan F50, very fine grained, high contrast, super sharp, or I've got Ilford Delta 3200, low contrast, grainy, not so sharp. The question is, which do I think will best suit these particular conditions? Well, you may be surprised that I'm actually going for the Delta 3200. Now, the reason is it's a very high contrast, bright, sunny morning. Now, Pan F, yes, lovely film, don't get me wrong, but it is very high contrast. Now, I could tame that in development, but I'm still going to get very inky shadows and possibly very dense highlights, whereas the Delta 3200, rated at its usual 1600 and developed accordingly, will give me tons of shadow detail and also bring down those highlights. And it's not as grainy as you might think in the 120 format. Okay, so the camera setup. I've got my 80mm standard lens on the camera. I have a yellow filter, which is always nice working in a forest, just to give you that extra separation. I have got the Delta 3200 and I'm using f11 on the camera because despite, and I'll just walk you into the scene, despite it being reasonable distances, foreground to background, and I could hold it with f22, I've gone for f11 because I want some tailing off, I want some gradual blurring as I go into the distance. It's not massive blurring, but I will be taking another couple of frames, one at f22 and one at probably about f5.6, because this tree is the main focal point here. I must get this sharp, all this bark, etc. And this little broken down bridge going across here, that's what I want leading you through the frame. So 3 shots, 3 different apertures, 15th of a second, probably, I don't know, maybe down to half quarter of a second for the f22, and probably a very fast 60th of a second. Well, the image came out pretty much as I expected, and it's not excessive grain to my eyes. It was quite a soft and gentle lighting in the end, much helped by the reduced contrast of the Delta 3200, but I like the composition, I like the way it leads you through, and I think the f11 was just about right. So this whole business of film speeds for landscape photography, I mean, there's always been an obsession with maximum detail, the low ISO 50s and 100 speeds. But it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to use a slow film just because you're shooting in a forest or, you know, some grand vista. I actually like the fast films. I think they add more character and atmosphere. And also, There is an argument to be said that digital does clean, noiseless, super sharp, better than film anyway, so I ain't competing with that. I'm going for a different look, and just because I'm shooting medium format and I'm on a tripod doesn't mean I can't use a fast film. I enjoy fast films in all the formats. They don't do it in large format, sadly, but it does give a certain character, and as I said earlier, it does give that lower contrast, which I think suits this particular lighting. You know, annoyingly, there's no actual midges around this morning. It was a waste of smidge. Well, at first sight, when I came across this scene, I was drawn by these trees here, this light. And I didn't realise how good they looked when I went into preview mode and visualised them in black and white. I think it's the early morning directional light coming in that creates this lovely pattern of shadows and light. And it's one of those shots that actually works far better in black and white than colour. So 80mm lens is getting broken out again. Let's frame it roughly like this. Okay, meter reading, as ever. Quick spot meter reading. Let's get a quick look at this scene, and lots and lots of deep shadows in there. Some very noisy playing going over. Lots of deep shadows, so I've got to watch the contrast here. Let's pick up some shadow I want detailing at f16, and I'm getting an 1/8 of a second. So, here we go. Okay, let's have another one. Quite happy with that 1/15 of a second, to be honest. There's going to be plenty of exposure in there. So, mirror up. What's this? Well, what you're witnessing here is the infamous Bronica shutter release problem caused by the fact the battery design is absolutely hopeless. I end up having to hold the battery case in just to get the thing to fire. Well, the resulting exposure was spot on. Quite happy with that 1/15 of a second. Plenty of detail in there. Not too much of a problem with grain. Again, it's a fussy composition, but I do like the way the softness of the film has added to it. It's not too hard. There's no inky blacks in there. Composition could be better though, so it's not one of my best from the day, I would say. So I wandered around in the forest probably for another half hour and ended up inevitably going back towards many of my favourite locations, because despite this being a reasonable sized forest by UK standards, there are only a few really decent locations to shoot in, and I think I know them all by now. Now, while I'm out this morning shooting favourite trees again, this is one I've shot on many occasions before, but never in summer, and I've always gone on about the arrangement of the various tree trunks here. And I'm going to shoot it with a short telephoto lens which compresses things a lot better, so let's get set up for that one. Now, having metered this at 1/4 of a second at f16 with a yellow filter on, I'm going to be shooting 2 or 3 frames because I probably will allow for a little bit of change in position because there's some interesting lighting towards the end of the tree tunnel, and I don't know if I want to have that on the edge of the frame or slightly more centered, so I need a slight variation there. But it's a relatively simple shot with this position because I've shot it many times before. As I said, I've never shot it in summer. It's going to be a completely different look to autumn and winter. So it's something I've wanted to add to my collection for quite some time. Well, before we get to the composition, just note here that this is underexposed. I'm probably one stop off here, which has surprised me. Now, you can pull these things up with digital scanning. It's fantastic. It loves underexposure. It can still extract detail from that tree trunk, but there's no getting away from it. It's a bit too thin for my liking. However, composition-wise, I absolutely love it. It's still my favourite. Now, I'm actually just going to move slightly forward for the last frame and exclude the foreground tree, which is my favourite tree, because there is an opportunity here to make more of that bright light at the end of this tree tunnel. And I never know, it might actually be a better composition in the summer. Now if you look carefully here while I'm taking this final exposure, you can see me holding the bottom of the camera. That's to force the batteries in against the contacts and make it fire. And that's a wrap. Now we initially thought this was potentially as strong as the previous composition. It's using the same trees, for goodness sake, why wouldn't it be? Well, the problem is it's in terms of symmetry and balance, because there are only 4 trees here, and despite the foreground one being larger than the others, it has nothing of the prominence of the original shot, and I think 5 makes a better setup. So hopefully that was quite interesting. Made a change, shooting such a fast film on a tripod in the forest. Shot it many times in 35mm, but less so in 120, but still, hope it goes to prove that you don't need the super slow films. But poor old Pan F, I think I'll be bringing it out pretty soon. It's been sat in the bag for a while and it's feeling a bit sorry for itself. So never mind slow films, you will get your chance. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon.